Okay, thanks everybody that has joined us for this afternoon session. Return to the office with COVID-safe technologies. So today you're with Insync Technology, Microsoft and Crestron for our virtual roundtable. So to start with, just a bit of housekeeping. So we are recording today's event and a link will be socialized afterwards for anyone that might miss it. As this event is live, all attendees are muted as it is a live event. There is a question section there where you can ask questions during the event. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat and make sure you put your name on there as well. So today we're going to kick off with Peter Garner from Microsoft, Teams Devices ANZ lead. We also have Niko on the call from Crestron and myself, Damien Magaritis from Insync Technology, Technical Solutions Professional. So if you could please take it away, Peter.
Thanks very much, Damien, and thanks everybody for dialing in. It's great to be here. For us, this has been an extraordinary time to be in the technology industry and especially working in communications and collaboration. Of course, it's also been a very challenging time. I think what we're witnessing is a fundamental change in the way people think about work. And it's been incredible to see how quickly customers are changing their work habits and how they're using Microsoft Teams to do that. In these extraordinary times, we've seen several large Australian and New Zealand customers who had Teams deployment projects with a delivery timeline of several months roll out the platform over the course of a week or even in a couple of cases a weekend, and then see 5,000, 10,000 users embrace the new tools the following week. The numbers you see on the slide here are from April. That's the last publish of this global data that Microsoft's done. And we saw some incredible increases in the number of people using Teams and also the intensity of that usage, where we've had in April 4.1 billion minutes of Teams meetings in a single day, and actually since then even bigger numbers as well. Of course, the fundamental change here is that every part of work is now collaborative and remote by nature. And we don't think of this as a current one-time phenomenon. What we're hearing from our customers is that this is a new way of work. And one of the ways that people are working differently is that they're now turning on video. It's gone from being something that people were actually quite reluctant to do prior to the pandemic to now something that's essential for team working. And in Australia, we see one of the highest rates of use of video anywhere in the world. See on this slide, only a couple of countries, Netherlands, Norway, have higher than us, but in fact, Australia has higher than the rest of Asia. And video has really become a staple from meetings, for meetings, whether people are at home or in the office. Over the slide, also we're seeing that work from home is increasingly being seen as a sort of critical imperative for workers post the pandemic. So here we have 71% of managers' employees saying they're desiring flexibility, and 82% of managers saying they expect to have more flexible work practices. Increasingly, it's moved from something that was a bit of a luxury at work to now something people see as their right as an employee in many industries. There's definitely going to be a lot more elbow room in the office moving forward. So even when these current circumstances are over, which we hope they'll be sooner rather than later, what we're expecting is that the workplace is going to be, as Satya Nadella put it, hybrid. And our research shows that the future of work is going to be a blend of remote work and physical offices with increased flexibility and choice demanded by users. Also, we see that a hybrid workplace is a technology-enabled workplace. And as part of that, we believe that devices are just fundamental. Devices help people get into meetings and get things done faster. So as we go, we've seen people go from lockdown and working from home to reopening of the offices and sometimes back again to home. We've heard that video capability is really critical, and a lack of that video capability in meeting rooms is really jarring, because people have got used to it at home. It's become an absolutely essential part of the fabric of meetings. So to not have it in the workplace, in shared spaces, is a real step backwards. So let's quickly have a look at the challenges of a hybrid workplace. Meetings have always been a cornerstone of teamwork. So what does an organization have to deal with if we don't get the technology piece right? The first challenge is inclusion. And when the meeting room technology isn't right, the remote participants feel like they can't contribute. The people in the room can't see them, they can't see the people who are at home, and effectively participants become invisible. That's really a challenge if you're trying to work together as a team, to collaborate together and to bring outcomes and ideas to bear. Then there's also interactivity, and it's critical when you have those meetings that are about brainstorming, ideation and creative type work, that you can continue to have that experience. Now, if you can't use butcher's paper or a whiteboard, how are people going to get ideas out? And how are you going to have those workshops that people might have previously flown into state for, or definitely prioritize being in the room? How are they going to happen in a hybrid workplace? And also, and this is a big one, there's employee well-being to consider. Our research shows that meeting fatigue is real. When you've got no fire breaks in between meetings, just back-to-back virtual meetings all day, that's tough. And then also research shows that when people are in a video call, that has a higher cognitive load on the individual. People get fatigued faster, there's more concentration required, and then that has a domino effect on people's well-being. They can feel really exhausted by it, and it's critical for organizations that when you think about culture and you think about the technology, that this has to be considered. A quick look at Teams. Of course, Teams is the hub for everything that we do in Microsoft 365. All of the documents, content, collaboration, teamwork, all of your apps, and of course, meetings and calling, all of that is under the one Teams hub. And because Teams is part of Office 365, it comes with the enterprise-grade security, compliance, and manageability that customers expect and value. And as part of that, we believe that devices are fundamental. And we really see that in the new world of work, every space will have not just one, but multiple devices to make it easier to work in a digitally collaborative manner. Over the slide, our goal with Microsoft Teams devices is to deliver a consistent, familiar, and very easy to use experience across every device. We're working to build additional intelligence into devices so that everyone has a voice, so that folks who are in the room, but also across the world, feel that they're truly together and can have the same view of the whiteboard, the content, the brainstorming, the collaboration. And we'll continue the focus we've always had on certification, so that every device from our partners has the highest audio, video, and sharing experience. It all works perfectly with Teams, and then those devices work well with each other as well. And perhaps even more important in today's world, we're going to up our game in the way we help IT pros to deploy, provision, manage, and monitor and upgrade all the devices in the Teams Admin Center. Because what we're hearing is that an IT professional's job just got a whole lot harder. We lost a couple of slides there. Okay, of course, our hero category of devices for the shared space is the Microsoft Teams room. Crestron have some terrific solutions in this space that allowed our customers to turn every room, whether it be a focus room or a boardroom, into a Teams meeting room. Let's have a quick look at what that experience looks like with features like proximity join and whiteboard content camera in this next video.
Meetings in today's modern workplace don't just happen in a conference room. They're collaborative sessions with teams around the world. With Microsoft Teams Rooms, we're bringing some tech magic to your meetings to enable your teams to work like they're all in one place, regardless if they attend in person or remotely. And getting started is easy. Just grab the first conference room you find open and use Proximity Join to connect to a Microsoft Teams Room device. While in the room, you might want to focus on a specific attendee in the meeting. Just pin the video from the console to put the speaker on full screen. Beyond video, we want to make sure people who join remotely also feel included with brainstorming happening in the room. And while we can already do that with a digital whiteboard, many meeting rooms utilize a physical whiteboard. The new content camera is able to intelligently find, crop, and zoom in to create a full screen experience. But there's more. Those creative thoughts and ideas can now be digitized and brought into a collaborative experience for everyone involved. So not being physically in the room is no longer a limitation. Even if someone walks in front of the whiteboard, remote participants continue to see right through them, and any progress is continuously captured to keep everyone engaged. Before, collaboration on the whiteboard was limited to people in the room, and information couldn't flow and remained trapped. Now, even when sharing your notes and brilliant ideas on a whiteboard, meetings can be an inclusive experience for every participant, no matter where they are. Work like you're all in one place with Microsoft Teams Rooms.
Doesn't matter how many times I see that content camera in action, it's still a wow moment. And when you see it in a physical meeting room, it's even better than in that video. The current circumstances have really pushed Microsoft from an engineering point of view. And those of you who follow the progress of Microsoft Teams Rooms would see just a real acceleration of feature development and feature release. We're certainly trying to listen to our customers and what they need and what challenges they're facing in this world that we're in. We're focused on delivering everything in a much faster timeline, and whether that's delivery of 3x3 video and soon to be 7x7 video, inclusive meetings and the ability for people to raise hands, or content capture for analog whiteboard, there's a definite acceleration there in feature release. Also, direct guest join for WebEx and Zoom meetings has been a really critical recent release, so that if someone in the organization is invited to a meeting on one of those platforms, they can still join from their native Teams Room device. And you're going to see us continue to accelerate our roadmap to enable more and more of these key features that people need in this new world. And our most recent announcements are around coordinated join with Surface Hub 2S for customers who want to have that interaction experience in the same room as their Microsoft Teams Room device, and also touchless meeting experiences, which is really relevant to the conversation we're having today about COVID-safe technologies. So let's have a quick look at those two features in this next video.
And touchless experiences help you interact with these devices without worry. Kick off a meeting in a conference room using your personal device or using voice commands.
Hey Cortana, join my meeting.
Enrich your conference room experiences with coordinated meetings. A new way to collaborate that brings Microsoft Teams Rooms and a Surface Hub together. With coordinated audio and video, so you can maximize screen real estate and take teamwork to the next level. In a meeting, you can use your Teams mobile app to interact with meeting room devices. Room capacity notifications help remind you of social distancing requirements by alerting you when there are too many people in a room. To ensure everyone's voice is heard no matter their location, participants can now raise their hand to get the room's attention. And live captions make it easy to follow along. Use your personal Surface Pro X Pen to collaborate and interact on a Surface Hub. And whether you're in the room or anywhere else, you can still work together from your own device. End the meeting from your personal device, use a voice command.
Hey Cortana, end my meeting.
Or just walk away. Everything will shut down automatically. Keep work flowing and stay connected no matter where you're working with touchless experiences on Teams devices in Microsoft 365.
Certainly that coordinated join is fantastic for having a Surface Hub as a side of room device where your MTR, potentially Crestron Flex, is still the kind of the master device and center of table. And then that those touchless features, being able to control the meeting without touching the touch console, doing it all from your own personal device, whether that be PC or phone. That's fantastic to bring that to the room as well. I think what we've learned over the past few months with COVID-19 is that we certainly can't predict the future. And it's going to be organizations that do the best job enabling inclusive and interactive team working that can unlock the creativity and agility of their employees and will be most successful in facing the challenges ahead. So on that, now let me hand over to Niko Walraven from Crestron. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Peter. Waiting for the camera to focus on me.
It's coming. Here we go.
Thank you so much, Damien. All right, so hi. I'm going to talk about returning to the office, and I'm going to share a number of things. I'm going to talk about some of the background, what's going to happen to offices, maybe all returning back. What does that mean for the meeting spaces that you currently have, and what does it mean in the future, what they're going to look like? Then I will drill down on the technology, on how do you make things actually safer, because there's so many people that are going to go back to the office really soon. I'm based in Melbourne. My name is Niko. I'm based in Melbourne, so I've experienced, working from home for a very, very long time, and I'm for one of those people that really looking forward to going back to the office. Now, as Peter just mentioned, the number of meeting minutes in that Microsoft had measured last in April, 4.1 billion meeting minutes on Teams. That just goes to show that there is Teams is the best collaboration tool, and it's definitely in the center of a lot of enterprise of the way how we collaborate with each other, being in the office in a hybrid environment. Some of them working from home, some of them all working from home. The Garner showed a very interesting perspective as well. They surveyed a number of people, and these organizations said it's not only the difference in how we are meeting currently, but it's also in how many people are going to go back to the office. So 47%, nearly half of the organizations that they interviewed, they will allow their staff to meet or work from home or in a hybrid kind of environment going forward. Next slide. But it has an impact on the meeting spaces as well. So the experience that we have now working from home, and so easy just to meet people over Teams and collaborate, how do you get that also in the office in a way that you have the same experience, but how do you do that in a safe kind of way? It has a pretty big impact on the number on meeting rooms, actually. So if you look at the larger meeting rooms or the medium-sized meeting rooms, 75% of these meeting rooms, they will have reduced capacity because of social distancing. So let's say a room which used to be 6 people now becomes a 4-persons meeting room, or other rooms will be converted into working offices. There's going to be a lot of changes going forward. The next thing is about we asked the question, like, why do you want to go back to the office? And it turns out that a lot of people want to go back to the office because they want to meet their colleagues, they want to socialize, they want to have those face-to-face impromptu meetings, which is really important how we communicate as human beings. But for the part of the organization that still works from home or does both, how do you create an environment that is, where everybody feels they're part of the same team, so the team cohesion is still there, and the camaraderie amongst the colleagues is also there. You being partly at home, being partly in the office. The number of people that are going back to the office is about 70%, based on a Gensler research report. And 30% actually is looking more for a flexible work arrangement. It kind of splits also in different generations. So Generation Z sits more on the 70% space, and Generation X is more in the 30% space. And what it actually allows is if the 30% is coming less to the office, it will give more space to the 70% to create a social distancing, to have more space in between the chairs and the tables, etc. So we have quite a number of things within Crestron to make this environment safer. So I'm going to share with you an example of a room. Like I just mentioned, this could have been a room for 6 people previously, but now it's a 4-person's meeting room. Outside the meeting room, you'll find a meeting room panel, the Microsoft Teams panel. I'll have a video on that in the next few slides. But on this panel, you'll be able to find all the information regarding the room behind that wall. It will tell you how many, if the room is already filled up, as a number of people that was allowed to be in the room is at capacity. It will also tell you if the room is booked. If it's not booked, it will tell you a whole lot of information that will be very clear in the video. But it will also allow you, if you look down the hallway, you can see with the signs which rooms are taken and which one are not. And this is really important because you don't walk into a room which actually is taken. You can actually see that right there, which room is ready for you to go into for an impromptu meeting, which rooms are maybe cleaned. There's a lot of options available that you could build into this. But once you enter the room, there is a proximity sensor. And the proximity sensor actually looks at if there's actually activity in the room. I'll give you a few scenarios. It turns out in Australia, about 20+% of the organizations that we work with, the people who work there, they book the meeting room, but then don't use the meeting room. So the proximity sensor will be able to tell there's nobody in the room and can put the room back into the pool of meeting rooms that can be used for meetings. The other thing which is really interesting as part of the Microsoft Teams Room solution is the camera. The camera can actually count the number of people that are in the room. So in case of this first person's room, the 5th person walks in. On the screen of the MTR itself will show you there's too many people inside the room and one person then could take the meeting somewhere else. And this is important because you get your social distancing and everybody's kind of like in a very well-informed environment that is suitable for that particular room. Now, one more thing to point out is that this solution works inside Teams meetings, but also if you're not in a Teams meeting, it will work as well. The system is independently of that. The next one would be the Flex itself, which is in the middle of the table. That's the Microsoft Teams room system. If you'd like to control the device, you can do it through your smartphone, which is a completely touchless experience. You can control the whole room around you, the lights, the blinds, everything that's basically going on in the room, or the meeting itself that's on the device itself, which gives you a zero-touch environment, and you don't even need to touch anything. The Flex itself, I would say, is pretty special as well because it connects straight to Ethernet cable. And why is that important? That is important because a lot of rooms that are out there, they already have Ethernet cables running in the room, and actually installing extra fiber optic cables or extra USB cables will force you to actually open up the floor and a whole number of things, which increase the cost of actually implementing a solution like this. It could be pretty simple and straightforward. So connect straight to Ethernet, is powered over Ethernet, is really clean and nice. Another thing which is very unique what we bring to the table is that as the room is a Microsoft Teams room, but if in the occasion that you want to have the occasional Zoom meeting or Google Hangouts, etc., you can use that client on your laptop. You plug in 2 cables, if the HDMI cable and a USB cable from the Flex inside your laptop, and then you use the camera and the microphone, the speakers in the room on your laptop. So you can have that occasional meeting. So for organizations who are in transition or moving to Teams or have that once in a while meeting, it's perfectly suited for that. You take the cables out, you're back into a Teams environment. Very straightforward, very simple, great for meeting people and great for sharing content. Now, all of this that I mentioned is now, all these different devices, they talk to each other through the XIO Cloud, which is a service from Crestron that provisions, manage, and reports all whatever's going on in the room, all these different devices, and make them actually work together. So in this scenario, I typically talk about 3 different rooms because we have different settings for different environments. So a smaller room, a medium-sized room, and a larger room. As you can see, there's different devices for these environments. For today, we're talking about a medium-sized room. So all these functionalities I just mentioned starts with the MTR, the Microsoft Teams room system, which is the Flex. It has all the capabilities of having a seamless and easy meeting just through a device, sit down, press the meeting that you want to be in, and you're in the meeting. Really very simple. But if you want to add all these COVID safer technologies, the next thing you should look at is the room scheduling panel. I think that is going to be an amazing device that tells you a lot of information on what's going on inside the room. The next will be XIO Cloud to bring all those pieces together. The proximity sensor, which tells you if there's actually people in the room. Wireless presentation, which will allow you to show company policies on the screen itself, things like around COVID information, etc. We are working with Insync on a bundle price for all of these, to put all of these together, so you will have that environment for one price. And if you'd like to have the BYOD functionality, that laptop with your client that you can make use of this room as well, we can add it as well. So all of these, they'll be offered through Insync, and it's pretty exciting. So this is a very interesting solution and very, very relevant for today's world. Now, to put all these things together, we created a video that gives you a view of what it actually looks like in real life.
Welcome to the latest edition of Cres TV. This week, our guest is Jeremy Lewis, another person who's much smarter than me. Jeremy's from our Sydney office, and we're going to be discussing what everybody has to now face, which is how do we return to the office in a safe but also productive way? Jeremy, I guess step number one would be we use the cloud.
Absolutely. So using XIO Cloud, you can remotely provision and management your systems. You can keep both your employees and everyone else outside of the rooms whilst you're updating firmware, managing the spaces.
Yep. So essentially when you're going to deploy the room and manage the room, less people in the room by doing it via the cloud.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's step one. Step two would be, I guess, using room booking panels and room signage.
Yes, correct. So the advantages there is that with room booking panels, you can see whether a room's actually been booked or not. We have both light bars and hall signway indicators that'll be green showing a room that's actually open and available. Red if the room's booked. Also you can alter the colors. You can have a blue that shows not booked but occupied. And through custom programming you can make the same indicators flash to show that the room might be in use when it's not meant to be or over occupied.
Yeah, too many people in the room, right?
Yeah.
And of course you book those rooms from your own desk and from your own device, right?
Correct, yeah. That's probably better than ad hoc meetings in this new COVID safe environment.
Sure. Next year we will be offering RFID in our panels, which will allow people to randomly or ad hoc book a meeting.
Yes, correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so sticking with the theme of we don't want to touch anything, the next would be using sensors in the room, correct?
Yes, yeah. So Crestron's PoE occupancy sensor, which is the new line of gear that we have, allows you to automate as much or as little that you want in your room. So you can walk into your space, have the environmental controls turn on the lights, drop the blinds, fire the system up, get everything ready for a meeting in a way that you don't have to touch it.
No hands.
Yeah, correct.
Terrific. Okay, so the next concept is the new Crestron app, which I understand runs on Bluetooth, right?
That's correct, yeah. So what you would do is you would enter the room automation turns the room on. You have the app opened and you walk up to the touch panel and it will show you a QR code that you scan on your phone, and then you take control of the room. You don't need to touch the touch panel at all.
Okay, so I'm using my own device. I again haven't touched anything in the room, and I can use the full features of everything that was in that room.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
All right, and although you're the smart one, I can tell you also can have the corporation can contact you about the COVID status of the building on that app.
I did not know that.
Boom, I've got one. All right, and so the next one would be signage in the room. So if there's too many people in the room, we already said that the light outside can flash, correct, right, because of the people counting. What about inside that room?
Okay, well, you can do two things. If you're running Air Media, you can actually use one of the images that comes up on the Air Media screen to show how many people are supposed to be in the room, the occupancy. And we can also set it up with the Hudley camera built into the MTR, allows you to do occupancy counting. You can set that number, so if the number is surpassed by the number of people in the room, a warning message can be programmed to pop up on the touch panel. Let you know that there's too many people in the room, people need to exit.
Okay, great. So we've got cloud, we've got room booking, we've got room signage, we've got an app, we've got sensors.
We have everything.
Plenty of options to make sure that when we return to the workplace, it's not just safe, but also productive. Thank you, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
We look forward to seeing you at our next episode of Crest TV.
I have one more short video, which I think it's really relevant. It talks specifically about the Teams room panels. At Ignite, just a few weeks ago, it was a very large Microsoft event. Both Crestron and Microsoft announced a new product category called the room panels. We have been in the room panel business for more than 10 years. But what we're going to do is we are going to bring out a new panel with a whole number of extra features like RFID and a whole bunch of other things in it. But most importantly, it runs Microsoft, the Microsoft software, which actually ties into the whole Teams experience. It's Microsoft certified, just like some of the other things I just mentioned, and it gives you a whole lot of information what's going on inside the room.
Later this year, we'll be launching Microsoft Teams Panels. Teams Panels are a great time and management solution powered by a native Teams experience running on a compact digital display. With vibrant color-coded LED indicators, as you see here, you can determine space availability from a distance, while the intuitive and easy-to-read UI presents space and meeting information so you can confirm you're in the right place at the right time. And using the Teams panel, people can book an available room on the spot or find an open space close by using the Nearby Rooms app. IT admins have the option to customize the experience by integrating first and third-party apps, providing users with even more options to help manage their meeting room experience. And when you pair it with a Microsoft Teams room or a Surface Hub, you can take advantage of things like the ability to display room capacity notifications. So when you get to the room and it's reached capacity, you'll know before you enter the room, which is really important these days. The first of our panels will be from Crestron and Yealink. Here I have a scheduling panel from Crestron. As you can see, the room is booked, as clearly indicated by the red LEDs. So let me go ahead and try to find another room. I can click on Nearby Rooms, and it looks like there's a few that are open. So let me click on one. I'm going to book it for 12:30. And I'll go ahead and reserve. So there you have it. I'm really excited to be sharing with you some of the new features that are coming to scheduling panels later this year.
That was it's a pretty interesting new category, and it is not only for if you already have MTRs in your room, any MTR or the license that is attached to the room will be able to work with this as well. It's just a matter of putting the panels on the outside, and we can definitely help you with that, and Insync is a great partner for that. What I'm showing you now is another device which is very relevant for a lot of organizations who have a lot of meeting rooms and say we do not require video in every meeting, or we just need it on an ad hoc basis. Like for instance, universities like Johns Hopkins University or medical facilities. We have a mobile version as well. This is the Flex R, which have all of that video meeting equipment all built inside. The only thing you really need is a power plug and an Ethernet port to plug it in, and you have video in that room. It's a pretty straightforward solution. So all the things I just mentioned, from a smaller room to a larger room, we have solutions that fit any of these environments. But we are the only organization that provides a perspective of a holistic room where everything can be much safer, from sensors to panels on the outside and software that all makes these things work together, cameras that can tell how many people are in the room. We can put it all together and provide a very safe environment for people to go back to their office in the next few months. that's it for my part. I'm going to move on to Damien, our very esteemed partner from Insync.
Great, thank you, Niko. That was fantastic. So thanks everybody for still being here. My name is Damien Magaritis from Insync Technology, and I'm going to talk through how we help deliver the hybrid workplace. So there's some details from me if you'd like to get in touch. And Insync as an organization, we're an organization that looks to bring the modern workplace into customers and make them more efficient, more productive, and focus on results. So we really want to help organizations unlock the power of the digital workplace. We are a Microsoft Gold partner, which is really important. And we also have some additional Microsoft Advanced specializations around calling for Microsoft Teams, meetings and meeting rooms for Microsoft Teams, which is probably the most pertinent to this conversation today, as well as adoption and change management. So how do we do that at Insync? So we have 4 main solution areas that we like to think come together in order to provide the modern workplace for our customers. We have workplace computing, things like Office 365 services, Windows 10 as a service, modern management and user services, intelligent communications, so that's really your unified comms, telephony, video conferencing, etc. Security and identity that really underpins everything that we do in the Microsoft 365 space. And of course, adoption and change management, helping with the people side of deployment into organizations. So for today, everything we've heard so far has been very much in this intelligent communication space with Teams, and how we extend that into the meeting room space with organizations such as Crestron. So I think everyone is very much aware that the tide has definitely shifted. So whilst myself, as I guess a modern workplace consultant, has worked this way for many, many years, it's been really interesting to see the speed at which organizations have moved to this modern ways of working, allowing people to work remotely from home, to see some of the preconceptions or misconceptions about what that actually means actually drop away as well. So it was forced upon a lot of organizations to actually see in real life what this experience would be like for them. And we definitely saw the pendulum swing because we didn't really have a choice, particularly for myself down here in Victoria, as to where we could work. We had to work from home if we really could, and that's what we did. So in order to address that, Insync Technology came up with a bunch of rapid solutions, essentially. So before COVID hit, we had plenty of solutions that were, let's call them strategic solutions. They were over months, sometimes over a year of time in order to get the technical, the change, the training, everything that goes into a successful modern workplace deployment. Of course, when COVID hit, all that went out the door, and we had a lot of organizations that required rapid assistance in order to get to Microsoft Teams or modern ways of working. So whilst Microsoft Teams is out the front of so much of what we do, it's what people see. It's really surfacing a lot of various different components of Office 365 that bubble up kind of underneath that client. So this is just an example of some of the offerings that we came up with in order to deal with the COVID pandemic. Things around making sure the Teams core is set up as best as possible that could be done in a short period of time. Also across the Office 365 platform, so making sure there's a roadmap in place, rapid governance, making sure things are safe, Teams for teamwork, and also some more specialty type things like Teams for communications. So rapid crisis communications is a great example. So helping organizations deploy an application that would surface within Teams that would allow them to communicate with other staff members and the rest of the business throughout the COVID crisis. Second to that is exactly what we're doing today, a live event. So a lot of organizations had to move to that rapid live event mechanism that we're using in order to do things like training or to have town hall events or anything like that, where people used to congregate in person, but were now no longer able to do so. So now we've kind of come out of let's hope, the worst of COVID that we've seen in Australia, fingers crossed. But many want office time back. And I'm one of those people. So before COVID, even though I've always had the ability to work remote, my office has been my laptop bag. I can work from anywhere. Airport lounges was pretty common for me. But I never really worked from home all that much. I like to go into the office. I like to converse with my colleagues. So I always like to have the option to work remote, but traditionally I was in the office more often than I wasn't. The other thing I'd probably point out is I'm sure there's a lot of people that assume that this is what the home office looks like when they make comments like, people are just going to want to work from home from 5 days a week. When in actual fact, for a lot of people, this is the reality, right? There's a lot of people that maybe not quite as bad as that, but had a much better working environment set up in the office. They had their space in the office, or they had flexible workspaces that they could use, and maybe even more intelligent devices, things like surface hubs in rooms for teamwork and collaboration, things that people don't typically have at home. So now that we're moving into COVID normal, what do we need to address? So initial rapid tactical response phase is over. So we had that kind of initial rapid tactical response that we needed to address in order to support people working remotely. We now need to accommodate that shift back into the office space and bridge the gap between office and remote workers. And we have to do that because it's never going to be the same as what it was. As Niko pointed out earlier, there is going to be a percentage of people that are always going to be remote. We're going to have space in offices that we can reuse, repurpose in order to support modern ways of working, whilst also making sure that we give that remote participant a seat at the table. Okay, and that's something that Peter was really talking about as well. How do we make sure that the person that's not in the room is still having a first-class experience? Okay. We need to ensure environment is ready for Teams meetings, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a sec. Teams cleanup activities is something else we see a lot of organizations needing to deal with. So in that rush to get people working remotely, a lot of organizations had Office 365. They might have been going through a more structured Teams rollout that took into account the governance and compliance, Teams lifecycle management, comms, adoption change management, all of that stuff. That might have gone out the window in order to get Teams out there. So there might be some work that needs to be done in order to clean up Teams. And I guess more specifically for today, meeting spaces need to be reviewed and augmented as required. So we've dealt with plenty of organizations that weren't using Teams in the meeting space before COVID hit. Their staff have left, they've gone home, the uptick in Teams usage was through the roof for the organization, and now their staff are coming back into the office. So they could have some non-Teams native spaces, which we address with things like cloud video interop, which is a short to medium term step where we can actually get Teams into meeting rooms on devices that aren't Teams native. But we can also review existing Teams native spaces that might have already been deployed and augment to ensure meeting COVID normal requirements. Okay, great example of that. We had one deployment for a professional services organization that we finished literally weeks before COVID hit. Brand spanking new Crestron Flex rooms have been deployed throughout. Not a single room has been used by the organization yet for the last 6 or 7 months. So now we're looking at those rooms to make sure, well, now that we have these new responsibilities in front of us, how do we address that? And work with Crestron on adding some of those touchless experiences, whilst also taking into account what Microsoft have added to the Teams experience natively as well. And I like to use this diagram as an example of how things have changed. So if we're in the same place at the same time, we're often working together in an office space. Traditionally, if we're in the same place and it was a different time, we might have had things like notice boards and project rooms and things like that, where people could be interacting, but at different times. We see Teams filling that space a lot now with things like org-wide teams, and Yammer to an extent as well, particularly in the larger organizations. If we're at a different time and different place, we've had tools like email for a long time, but of course Teams is taking a lot of that space now. We don't want to be stuck in email chains anymore. And then of course, if we want to communicate and we are in different places, this is where Crestron really fit in, right? So whilst we've always had that use case in the past, it might have been 20% of communications. I'm pulling that number, but just using that as an example, that may have been in a different place at the same time. Now we expect that split to be pretty even, right? We might have 50% of our staff in the office, 50% of our staff remote at any one time. So it's really important those meeting rooms are ready to handle Teams meetings. So to prepare for that, a couple of offers that we have at the moment around Teams Network Readiness and Teams Meeting Room Readiness that can assist in getting you ready to handle Teams meetings when you come back into the office. The Teams Network Readiness Review. So this is valid not just for Teams meeting rooms, but Teams in general. So we have another organization we're working with at the moment where Teams usage outside the organization has been great, no real media issues. Staff are now coming back into the office and the network is not ready to handle all of that additional media traffic. They've got issues in the perimeter of the network, there's quality of service, it's not set up, a bunch of things like that. So this network readiness review is really designed to look at those types of problems and make sure that the network within the organization is ready to handle Teams media. And we also have Teams meeting room readiness review as well. So in these readiness reviews, we basically go through the environment and we provide a lot of information as to what's possible with rooms, but then also put a plan together and recommendations. Now we touch on things like Niko spoke about earlier, the different types of Crestron room solutions that are suitable for their space, as well as what Crestron are offering in the touchless room experience space. So the proximity sensor, being able to share from my laptop remotely using things like Air Media and Miracast, for example. And then of course, those types of offerings fit into a much broader piece. So Teams is bigger than just the meeting room. It's bigger than just remote working. There's a lot of components that need to come together for a successful Teams rollout. Teams network readiness review is there. Voice and meeting room readiness. So we can't forget voice as well. So if we want that dial pad to appear on a Crestron Flex device in our meeting rooms, we need some way to get voice integration between the PSTN and that room. So we do things like that as well as health checks, various Microsoft 365 managed tasks where security, roadmap, etc. fit, and all underpinned with adoption and change management activities. So quite a lot there to help you with your Teams journey, but also make sure that the Teams environment is right, and we extend that into the meeting room with Crestron offerings. And finally, next steps. So first up, check out our Teamwork Hub. We've got a lot of information there, a lot of blogs where you can find various things we're working on and things that we find. Get started with readiness activities for Teams. Okay, there's things that you can be doing now to get your organization ready for the move back into the office, or you might already be moving back into the office today and you need to make sure that those meeting rooms are ready to go. And get in touch. You can scan that QR code that will take you to our Contact Us page. Always feel free to reach out to me direct here at Insync. So with that, we are open for questions. Just going to check the questions now. Okay. So I do have one question here, and I believe it's for you, Peter. What are your top tips for preparing for a hybrid workplace?
Thanks, Damien. It really comes back to that idea of inclusion. No one being left out of the team working experience, no one unable to contribute. So when you're thinking about that meeting room scenario in the hybrid workplace, you need to make sure that as an absolute must, you've got video in the room so that the people who are in the room can be seen by the people at home and vice versa. You have that same experience that people have when we were all at home, that carries on. And then also, and it doesn't have to be every room, but some of the rooms need to have that capability for interactivity. So if you'd have meetings where you would have a lot of ideation, a lot of creative stuff, a lot of throwing out of ideas, that can really break down if people aren't in the same room. The solution there is set up for a virtual whiteboard, the digital whiteboard. That could be a touch screen in the room. If budget's right, could pair a Surface Hub with your Crestron Flex, or you get that whiteboard content camera leveraging existing analog whiteboard. You need some portion of the meeting rooms where that brainstorming can still happen, even if some key stakeholders in Brisbane, in Melbourne, in Sydney, they can't fly to be there. You need to be able to cater for that. So a couple of thoughts there on preparation.
Great, thanks, Peter. And another question here: are the rooms available now, and can we see them? So, Niko.
Yeah, thanks, Damien. I think so. All the things I've shown today is all available right now. All the only thing is the room panels. We do have room panels, but the ones I specifically talked about with the Microsoft team room panels, those will be available early next year. Can you see these rooms? Absolutely. We have demo centers across Australia. I would say though, especially here in Victoria, we obviously have a bit of a delay when it comes to be able to show things, be able to get out of our house and meet each other in offices, etc. So just hold that thought for just reach out to me or reach out to Damien. So we're working with an Insync on this as well. I'll be able to show it to you or by dropping down by our office or the Insync office to show you the solution, all working very nicely. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Niko. That is it for questions that we have here. Thank you everybody for coming along today. I think it's been a great session, and please reach out if you have any further questions or queries. And thanks to Peter and Niko for co-presenting today.
Thanks, Damien. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Damien. Thanks, Peter.